Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever time you might be tuning in. We're thankful that you're here today. Uh, I'm recording this Friday morning because I did not get it recorded on Thursday like I had mentioned earlier in the week. You know how life goes, it gets a little crazy sometimes. But we're here today and we're going to talk a little bit about Noah, the ark, and the ark, and the world at that time. So this past Sunday, we talked a little bit about Noah in the sermon from 2 Peter chapter 2. He got me thinking about Noah and how he lived during a wicked time in human history. How he raised his family to seek and serve God. How he was able to stand for righteousness even though the whole world, literally the whole world, was living in total depraved wickedness. If you believe in a young earth, then this time in history was about 1,000 years or so after the creation of man and man's fall into sin. Man's condition did not improve. By this time in the history of the world, the wickedness of man was great. And as we read in Genesis 6, this is what the Lord said. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him in his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals, creeping things, and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. The world was in a terrible place morally and spiritually. They had turned their back on God, and they were doing whatever it was that satisfied their hearts and their minds and their bodies. Sounds a lot like today, doesn't it? Now let's talk about Noah. That's the circumstances we find Noah in. So let's talk a little bit about Noah. Who is Noah? Well, Noah was born in the line of Seth. Seth was a son born to Adam and Eve after the murder of Abel, one of his brothers, by Cain. In the time of Seth, it tells us in Genesis, people began to call upon the name of the Lord, meaning that the people began to look to God and live in a righteous manner. Enoch is also in the line of Seth. He was a descendant of Seth, a great-great-great-great-grandson. I think I have enough greats. And Enoch is described as someone who walked with God, and God was pleased with him. And it tells us that he was one of two individuals that did not die, that God removed from the earth and took to heaven. Elijah being the other one, right? Then Noah was born to Lamech, and his father basically says of Noah, this is how he described Noah, he will bring relief to mankind from the toil and struggle of his work. Noah's name has come to mean rest. Noah means rest. So that's a quick overview of the line of Seth that Noah is born into, a line that is really characterized by a word that we use, righteousness, that the ability to live in a right manner, in a morally pure way before God. Genesis 6 goes on after the indictment of the world's wickedness in verse 8. This is what it says. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Noah found favor among all the peoples of the world, all those who were living in sin. There was only one who found favor in the Lord, and because of that favor, his family was protected as well. And he was found favor in the eyes of the Lord. That's Yahweh, Jehovah. It's the great I am. This is a pretty big deal to be found with favor in the eyes of the Lord God Almighty. How is Noah described in the scriptures? Well, Noah, which I just said, found favor in the eyes of the Lord. That's in Genesis 6:8. Why? Why did he find favor with God? Noah was a righteous man. You look in Genesis 6:9. He was described as a righteous man. He was pure in heart. Noah was blameless in his generation. verse 9 of chapter 6. The idea there is a good reputation. Noah did all that God commanded him in chapter 6, verse 22, and it says it again in chapter 5, verse 7, that Noah did all that God commanded him. So Noah was obedient. And Noah worshiped God. We read that in Genesis 8. And God was pleased with that worship, meaning I believe that he was a humble man before God. Well, what was the result of the favor that God showed him? Well, Noah was blessed by God with honor and strength to fill the earth. We read that in chapter 9. So he's blessed. He's blessed with the knowledge of how to build this ark that I probably never built before. The ratio that's used for the length and the width and the height is the same ratio that we use today for building our vessels that travel on the water. Pretty amazing, I think, that God gave the engineers their ratio on how to build boats. So Noah was blessed, and he was blessed after the flood with the task of populating the earth. Now, he didn't, but his sons did, and he gave guidance to the world as to how to live and to live in righteousness. Did he do it perfectly? No, he didn't do it perfectly. But at the end of the day, God saw Noah as a righteous man, someone who was pure in heart. Noah's given a promise, a covenant from God, that the rainbow that we see in our skies today is a direct result of the promise that God says, I will never destroy man and the earth again with a flood. And so when we see that rainbow, I know it's been co-opted by other groups, but the original meaning of the word of the rainbow that we see is a reminder that God is a God of covenants, and he will maintain his covenant. It's a great promise for us, a great way that we can trust God. Noah is called the herald or preacher of righteousness. We read that in 2 Peter, right? So he was distinguished. We have a great example of how to live in a wicked world. We find that in Noah. Remember Noah, his wife, his sons, and his sons' wives were the only ones found to be walking with God in all of the world. I don't know what the population was, but it was more than 8. Well, I do know that because the girls had to have parents. We don't know if they were sisters to begin with or they came from 3 different families, but so we know there was at least 16 people in the world, but there was probably hundreds of thousands of people in the world at that time. Only 8 were found to be righteous. God regrets that he made man. Can you imagine the God of the universe, the God that put all this together, the God that created creation all the way through the creation story in the first part of Genesis, and he created man and he created woman, and he said, this is good, this is very good. Regretted that he made man. He was grieved in his heart. His heart was broken over the wickedness of man. And he lays out a plan to Noah of what he was going to do to purge the world of these wicked people and essentially restart the clock with Noah. So why did Noah stand out among the people? We've touched on this a little bit, but let's dig just a little bit deeper. One, he was righteous, so he was pure in heart is the word we're going to use to describe him. He pursued that which was good, that which was right and true. Paul tells us in Ephesians 5, do not become partakers with the sons of disobedience, the wicked, as you once did, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of the light, for the fruit of the light is found in all that is good and right and true, those things that are righteous, those things that a person who is pure in heart seeks after. So Noah had a good reputation. He was well thought of by others. This is crucial if you're going to live a righteous life. How do other people think of you? Do they think of you as a troublemaker, a knothead, just a arrogant, judgmental person? Or they see you as a kind, gentle person who is there to help, to lend a helping hand, to walk hard paths with people? Well, Paul, again, tells us in 1 Timothy 3, he gives us a list of qualities that any godly leader should exhibit in their life. And this is not just talking about deacons and elders. These are characteristics and qualities that should be a part of everyone's life as we walk out. But so we should be above reproach. Apparently, Noah was above reproach. He was self-controlled. He was respectable. And you become respectable by respecting other people. He's not violent, but gentle. Not greedy. And Paul says he must be well thought of by outsiders, those outside the church, so that they may not fall into disgrace. So Noah was pure in heart. He was of a good reputation. He was obedient. He walked in holiness. Peter tells us in 1 Peter 1 to prepare our minds for action and being sober-minded or singularly focused. Set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in your conduct and in how you walk out your life here upon earth. So Noah, why did he stand out? He was pure in heart. He had a good reputation. He was obedient. And number 4, he was humble. He worshiped God. The psalmist tells us in Psalm 149, praise the Lord. Sing a new song. His praise is in the assembly of the godly. Let Israel be glad in his maker. Let the children of Zion rejoice in their king. Let them rejoice and praise his name with dancing and making melody. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He adorns the humble with salvation. We know that after everything was said and done, Noah worshiped God. And we know even before the ark was built, he made a practice of worshiping God. And it says that God was pleased with his worship. So Noah, he was pure in heart. He was made of he had a good reputation. He was obedient, and he was humble. How can we find favor with God? Well, we can follow the example of Noah. We live righteously no matter the cost. Because what we would lose by not living righteously. Let me start that sentence over because it's crucial and the words are a little bit twisted around. Because what we would lose by not living righteously is far a greater loss than what we might gain by living unrighteously. You will gain more by living righteously, brothers and sisters. That you would live with a pure heart, that you would make sure that you have a good reputation to those in the church and outside the church, that you walk in obedience, you walk in holiness, that you take on the holiness of God because he's holy. The one who called you out of the world is holy, so you be holy and be humble. Humble. Worship God. We spend so much time worshiping ourselves. We're concerned about our hair and our makeup and our clothes and our cars and how people view us. And that's worshiping of self. But when we humble ourselves before God, God is the focus of our worship. And when God is the focus of our worship, there's an inner beauty that comes out that cannot be covered up. And we will live righteously if God lives within us. So let me close with this from 1 John 2:28 through 33. And now, little children, abide in him, so that when he appears, we may have confidence and not shrink from him in shame at his coming. If you know that he is righteous, you may be sure that everyone who practices righteousness has been born of him. So what kind of love the Father has given to us, or see what kind of love the Father has given to us, that we should be called children of God, and so we are. The reason why the world does not know us is that it did not know him. Beloved, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet appeared, but we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, because we shall see him as he is. And everyone who puts their hope in him purifies himself as he is pure. As we pursue the one who is holy, who called us, and we pursue his holiness, and we walk in holiness in how we live our lives, we can also put our hope in him who purifies us from all sin, from all wickedness, sets us free, gives us life eternal. Be like Noah. Be a righteous person. God bless you.